Introduction to the Book of Jeremiah. God's Reluctant Messenger. Jeremiah felt frightened and insecure, but he burned with a message. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. According to Jeremiah 1:8. Jeremiah lived one of the most dramatic lives in the Bible, and that is saying something. But he never learned to like his role. Through all the excitement, he remained reluctant, insecure, and often unhappy. God chose him to be over nations and kingdoms, to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. Check on chapter 1, verse 10. To accomplish that, Jeremiah had only one resource: his mouth. How did he respond to such an awesome challenge? Sovereign Lord, he said, I didn't know how to speak. I am only a child, according to chapter 1, verse 6. He didn't stride forward. He barely hung on. He wanted out of the job. His only encouragement was God's promise. Today, I have made you a fortified city, an iron pillar and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land. Check on chapter 1, verse 18. For 40 years, Jeremiah gave top officials a warning they hated to hear and refused to heed. Several times, they arrested and imprisoned him. They nearly killed him. His message? With God's approval, the savage Babylonians would sweep down into Judah. Clever alliances with other powers like Egypt wouldn't help, said Jeremiah. Neither would Judah's half-hearted religion. Judah's only hope lay in renewing an alliance with the living God. A disturbing glimpse of Jeremiah's mind. The book of Jeremiah stands out not for beautiful poetry or great ideas. Its power comes from its disturbing glimpse of Jeremiah's mind. Jeremiah talked like a man who has awakened from a nightmare, convinced that the nightmare is coming true. His words were sledgehammer blows, designed to crack the hardest, most indifferent skull. Though he wished to keep quiet, he found that God's decode words in my heart is like a fire shut up in my bones, according to chapter 20, verse 9. No prophet exposed his feelings more than Jeremiah. His relationship with God was strict with quarrels, reproaches, and outbursts. He told God he wished he were dead, according to chapter 20, verses 14 to 18. He accused God of being unreliable on chapter 15, verse 18. But God offered no sympathy. Rather, he promised more of the same, reminding Jeremiah of his promise to stand by him, according to chapter 12, verses 5 to 6, and chapter 15, verses 19 to 20. Their relationship, doubts and all, form one of the best examples in the Bible of what it means to follow God in spite of everything. Reason to fear. Jeremiah frankly feared death. He worried of ridicule. He hated standing alone against the crowd. He told God how he felt. Yet, he obeyed God. And in the end, his message proved true. He stands as a far greater man than the kings in their luxurious palaces who imprisoned him and burned or burnt his writings. He spoke a gloomy message in a gloomy time, and as a result, his words are not always pleasant to read. He reminds us that God's message is not always comforting and encouraging. People who disregard him will have reason to fear. For a world that defies him, he plans judgment, and no one, not even his chosen messengers, will escape suffering. God's presence will make them strong enough to face it. How to read Jeremiah. Suppose you find in an old trunk a thick packet of letters written by an old relative. You soon realize that they are all out of order. Those letters might contain the whole of your relative's life, but to get his story straight, you'd have to read the whole packet. A reader of Jeremiah finds a very similar situation. The book is an anthology of prophecies given at different times. They jump forward and backward in history, and if you imagine that the book is in chronological order, you will become very confused. Fortunately, it is not hard to reconstruct the order of the main events of Jeremiah's life. Jeremiah spoke to a nation about to be destroyed by war. 300 years before him, the Israelites had split into two countries, Israel in the north, and Judah in the south. About 100 years before Jeremiah, Assyria had conquered the northern kingdom. This disaster was World War I in Old Testament history. Now, during Jeremiah's life, World War II threatened. Another fierce kingdom, Babylon, assembled troops against the remaining southern kingdom. Would God save his chosen people? Jeremiah loudly insisted for more than 20 years that God would punish Judah just as he had Israel, by letting Babylon take them into captivity. He lived to see his predictions come true. Many passages in Jeremiah refer to the 5 kings he knew. When you see their names, use them as a reference point in figuring out the order of events. Josiah, 17 years. Jehoahaz, 3 months. Jehoiakim, 12 years. Jehoiachin or Jehoiakim, 3 months. Zedekiah, 11 years. Second Kings, chapters 23 to 25, or Second Chronicles, chapters 34 to 36, give an overall historical summary of their reigns. You can read a brief synopsis in a lineup of rulers. You check on your Bible. In my case, a certain page is given. In daily devotional Bible that I use, the M&I Links, it's on page 338. Check on yours, based on the Bible that you specifically use, okay? Now, the better you grasp the historical situation Jeremiah lived in, the more insight you will have into his words. Now, to capture the full emotion of Jeremiah, you may want to read the first few chapters out loud. Plans for reading Jeremiah. Plan 1. An overview of Jeremiah in 4 days. For day 1, read the introduction to Jeremiah just like what we've done, and then proceed to chapter 2 for God's passionate indictment of his people. Day 2, read chapter 15, part of an emotional dialogue between Jeremiah and God, or between God and Jeremiah. Day 3, read chapter 31, God's promise of restoration in a new covenant. Day 4, read chapter 38 for Jeremiah's dramatic skirmishes with death in the last days of Jerusalem. Again, for plan 1, day 1, introduction, then proceed to chapter 2. Day 2, chapter 15, for day 3, chapter 31, and day 4, chapter 38. Now for plan 2, all of Jeremiah in 51 days. So 1 chapter a day, there are 52 chapters. So again, 1 chapter a day, except for day 44, wherein we read, or you read both chapters 44 and 45. Okay, so that's why 52 chapters in 51 days. So, that's all for now. Good night, everyone. And God bless us all.